From the BBC World Service, in association with ABC and Akashvani, this is Stumped.
Well, hello and welcome to Stumped, your intercontinental hit of news, features and debate from the quirky world of cricket. I'm Nikesh Ragani for the BBC in sunny Leicester.
Jim Ashwell for the ABC in Sydney, and it's monsoonal.
Hi, and I'm Sunil Gupta for Akashvani in New Delhi, and we've just got over our monsoons. But of course, the big news here in India are the two teams which have been selected for the Asia Cup T20 and the Women's World Cup, ODI World Cups, both starting in September. And for neither is India the defending champion because, pointed out, it is the T20, whereas India are the defending champions of the ODI Asia Cup. It's played in two formats, as you might know.
The race to be the second biggest franchise tournament behind the Indian Premier League is hotting up with the SA20, Big Bash and 100 all vying for the number 2 spot. This week, SA20 Commissioner and former South Africa captain Graham Smith said they want to be the biggest league outside the IPL and are not threatened by the Big Bash League, while the BBL's Chief Executive Officer Todd Greenberg has stated that we are unashamedly aiming to make the BBL the second best T20 league in the world. Cricket Australia announced they are considering private investment options for the BBL, with Greenberg confirming that while no final decision has been made, the organisation is committed to examining every option to ensure the long-term growth and financial health of the competition. So, Jim, which league could legitimately say it's second best?
Well, there's obviously a conflict there for Australia potentially as we move on, because it's also been said by Todd Greenberg, supporting the Australian team in its schedule, particularly at home, is a priority. And as we look ahead, there's clearly a clash coming up in 2027 in January when Australia is supposed to be going to India to play 5 tests at the same time as the Big Bash is hitting its high spot. Now, if you were a potential corporate who wanted to buy a Big Bash team, or you were the television rights holder, you'd want the Australian players to be playing, I would have thought. Because as a rule, getting players from overseas to play in this competition, other than, say, Chris Gale some years ago, hasn't really worked to the advantage of television and the audiences that go to it. So they've got a problem somewhere down the line, and how they manage it, I don't know. You need 15 months in the year to accommodate all the cricket. So at some point, this is all going to come to a head. And I just think in this country, if they start trying to push for a bigger BBL with perhaps the best players one way or another, and also create a few new franchises, there's a lot of avarice in this game, they're buying trouble. But it's a show worth following, as they say, and we'll keep an eye on it.
How good to hear that people are only talking about being second and not first, because the IPL has absolutely taken that spot without any question. That's saying something about it. And I have some numbers for you. I'll come up with them later. But frankly, if you ask me, I mean, I've always thought of the BBL as being what the top league. I mean, it was there really almost before the IPL began, and it had it had international players, it had the grounds, it had the coverage, it had everything. I personally think, and I completely agree with Jim, I've said this before on this program, there is too much cricket. You are killing the golden goose. You're going to be doing it very, very soon with everything that's going into it because you cannot take it. Jim says 15 months. I say 18 months today. If you really want to have good players playing all the time and give everybody a chance, it's not going to happen like this. Now, India might be lucky with saying, you have a separate ODI team and a separate T20 team and a separate test team, and you can actually make 2 teams of each because you've got so many players. But that you can't say for other countries as well. And if one of the things is to spread it across the globe, well, then there is unfortunate advantage for India. So I think the issue is not who's second, but how are you going to regulate all these leagues to be able to make them spectator worthy? Because eventually there is going to be some sort of fatigue. You cannot be glued to a screen all day. It just doesn't make sense. So as of now, I certainly think that the BBL, certainly in my mind, is definitely the number two. But there's just too many leagues. You have the West Indies League, you have the South Africa League, you've got a new one coming up in Nepal. There's the West. There's everywhere. You've got leagues coming up: Sri Lanka League, Pakistan League. How many leagues are you going to have? How many players are going to be playing everything? So I think there's going to be a shakedown. There will definitely be a shakedown at some point in time when the money doesn't come in. South Africa went through the same thing some time ago before they sort of rejuvenated or rejigged themselves. So it doesn't really matter who's second. I think who's going to remain standing is really the question in a couple of years' time.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, Sunil, it's all about cash, isn't it? And viewership and quality of cricket, and too many leagues, I guess, can sort of just dampen the quality that you see on show around those leagues, wherever they may be. Jim, in terms of private investment, then you can understand from a player's point of view, playing in leagues that have got very wealthy owners and big budgets and things like that. There are a lot of white ball specialists in modern day cricket who are benefiting from this. In terms of global private investment in global cricket, is that the way forward, you feel?
Probably not. No, it might be as far as those entrepreneurs and franchise owners and stakeholders are concerned. But the thing is, if the ICC wants to continue to be relevant, and they've got T20 and 50 over World Cups, as well as the standard fare with the WTC, we're talking about it. We're already seeing here that the priority, quite obviously, for the Australian players is to make sure, most of them anyway, that they are ready to play in a test series. Example, at the moment, there's no Pat Cummins and Mitchell Stark playing before the Ashes. They're having 3 months off. So that's how they're getting prepared for what they consider, and they're well paid for it too, is a major form of the game, which is this Ashes series coming up. I think what we're going to see longer term is that the big nations, really, England, India, and Australia, front up against each other because there's a lot of revenue in TV rights and the rest of it there. And the rest will suffer. They'll be very occasional in terms of playing international cricket other than the ICC events. There's got to be some kind of rationalisation to fit all of this in and to look after the players sort of in between who are making a living not only, if they can, for their country, but mainly out of franchise T20 cricket. And South Africa's certainly in that place because they're not playing any tests at all in the coming summer.
Yeah, sad to see South Africa after being crowned world test champions, not able to parade that team to a home crowd for the foreseeable future. In terms of ownership of these franchise teams, then, Sunil, I mentioned the 100 there. They've had a lot of investment from Indian businesses. Some of the IPL teams have now taken large stakes in teams within that 100 competition. We talk about the Ambanis, who own the Mumbai Indians franchise. They've taken over at the Oval Invincibles. We could soon see it become the MI Oval Invincibles or something similar. They've got MI New York, MI Emirates, MI Cape Town. They're taking over the world, as are a lot of the other franchises who've got the Royals franchises, the Knight Riders franchises around the world. Is multi-team ownership by the same company? Is that the way that we're going to see things going in the future?
Oh, no question. Absolutely no question. They have the money. They're part of this game, and they know that especially the diaspora, is always going to be following it. If you look at what's happening in the Major League in America, all that's going to be there. Why are they spending this money? Because listen, all these guys are big businessmen. They're not spending it just because they love cricket. They're spending it because they're getting something back from it. And that back is they're getting it from the diaspora. They're getting it from the locals in the cricket playing nations. So of course it's going to be there. And everybody wants a piece of the action. It's like being an investor in a very, very large, successful company. Everybody wants a piece of the action. And they have the money, they have the wherewithal to do so. So yes, absolutely. But whether that's the way forward, I don't know. Is that going to happen? Yes, because I think the way forward has got many connotations. We just talked about a couple of those connotations.
Indian business people have clearly got a lot of money, those IPL owners. Do you think the 100 and SA20 now have got a massive advantage over the BBL just because of that investment coming, especially from India?
Yeah, well, hey, money makes the world go round. I think that's the thing we heard when we were young, and it's quite absolutely it's true. That's what Sanjeev said. I mean, I've known him, during business and so forth before, and he's a very shrewd businessman. He will not make the wrong calls. Every business makes investments. Even when the IPL was invested in right in the beginning, people didn't think that it was going to be this big. So it does take time to fructify. Now people have seen the IPL, but everything there is a life cycle. And you're talking marketing. There is a brand or a product life cycle. It is a marketing standard term. And there is a life cycle. So you've got to keep the brand alive. And how do you keep it alive? Exactly that way. You bring in some new elements, like, for instance, Indian players in different leagues. That is a new element which is not there today. And that suddenly revitalizes your brand. So I think, yes, definitely, it is going to play a role provided they can actually get these done. And let me tell you, these are very big businessmen. We just talked about Sanjeev Goenka. You're, of course, talking about Mukesh Ambani. You're talking about so many others. Shah Rukh Khan, who's the big film superstar. They've got the money, they've got the investment, they've got the capital, they've got everything. And they've got the charisma. I mean, some of them. So I think, yes, it is. It remains to be seen, really. Again, I come back to that. Which formats will eventually thrive and which will wither away? Because any company, if you just look at marketing terms, has many brands. It's not that all of them succeed. And you have this term called loss leader, as you might know, in the marketing world. And the loss leader is something that's put in over there to raise your, or elevate your image, and it's all the others that actually make the money for you. So I think that shake up or that shakedown is going to happen, but till then, it's going to be an exciting ride.
And Jim, look, in the early days of the Big Bash, you mentioned earlier, we saw the biggest names of T20 cricket taking part in that competition, the Chris Gales of this world. Of course, Shane Warne was still around towards the end of his career and did massively to promote that league. The names on the roster aren't quite the same these days. You do get some of, the best Pakistani players going over and lighting up the competition, but few and far between, really. Is it just purely a money thing? Is that the only way to attract these big names once again for the BBL?
First thing they have to sort out is ownership. You need to remember at this moment, as we talk, the states don't want to give up, most of them, their rights to these teams. So it's not guaranteed that this private ownership is going to happen, certainly tomorrow. And then they've got to sort out their backyard because it's not India. The numbers, as Sunil suggested, aren't as big. You don't want to get too far ahead of yourself in this game, otherwise you'll lose spectators and you'll lose television audiences. So I think they really have to think about how it's all set up to maximise the interest during the month of January from everybody. Otherwise, they run the risk of killing it off. So first things first, this ownership caper, it's not sorted. This is not like India. This is a much smaller market for a start. And maybe there'll be some Indian corporates who want to come in and join the fray. I'm sure there are. But will it get to that point where the states are happy to sell off? Let's see.
Well, that's it for this week's Stumped. My thanks to Jim Maxwell and Sunil Gupta. Join us again next time.